So for this morning's session, I managed to fall over yesterday and sprain my wrist. I was knocked over by my dogs, so that wasn't very helpful for doing demonstrations. So I'm going to do something a little bit different this morning, which is why I titled it Leather Talking. Because I've been doing a lot of reading up about different things and reading some stuff on Leather UK and Leather Naturally. And what I wanted to do this morning was to kind of maybe start a sort of conversation with you guys. And I've titled it Leather as the Hero. So I'm going to do a little bit of a chat this morning, and there is going to be a bit of an interactivity later, so you might need to have access to your comment section. I'm going to ask for a bit of input in a little bit. So what I wanted to look at today is, if you were asked to say what the definition of leather is, could you answer that question? So I'll give you a quick, simple definition. The definition of leather is a material made from the skin of an animal by tanning or a similar process. So yeah, I'm just checking that you can hear me okay. So the definition, material made from the skin of an animal by tanning or a similar process. So if that's the case, then is it correct to use the term leather to describe something that's not made from the skin of an animal? So for example, is it correct to say something is PU leather, polyurethane leather, vegan leather? Is it correct to say faux leather? Now, faux leather may be arguably, because the word faux meaning fake, but I have to say we've had a lot of people that come in saying, what animal is a faux? You know, it's a misleading term. Sometimes people don't understand. There's a reason why it's not called fake leather. They're using a French word to make it sound more accessible, more like it's leather. And I've got a good example of this. We bought a sofa a few years ago from Sainsbury's Homebase, big company, in one of their Easter sales, and it had a tag on it, and the tag had a leather shape logo, and it said genuine faux leather on it. And I thought it was funny. I laughed about it. But I'm thinking now that actually that was quite mis-selling. You know, they were trying to purport that something was leather by using that language, genuine fake leather. What does that mean? So what I want to think about this morning is the fact that there's quite an international movement at the moment to try, and a bit belated, let's face it, but to try to protect the definition of the name leather. So in one of the really big trade fairs in the world for sort of purchasing and materials, where all the big companies go to get source things, in China last year, for the first time, they actually said that people couldn't use the term leather unless it was leather. They had to say what the material was. So if it was a plastic or a vinyl or a polyurethane, it had to say that. They couldn't use the term leather with it, which is important. It's very significant in terms of international ways of defining things and making it clear to consumers as well. So another reason that it's important is I bought a pair of boots about 8 or 9 years ago, and I wanted to buy leather boots, but there was a big sale on. I didn't have my glasses on. I looked at the boots, and I looked at the little construction inside, and I saw the leather symbol. It said upper material leather symbol. I bought the boots. Within 4 or 5 months, the whole of the front was cracking and damaged, and I could tell by the cracking that it was not leather. So I went back, put a magnifying glass on, looked at the little detail, and realised that the heel shape that was cut out, a small piece of the whole boot, was leather, but the whole of the rest of the material was synthetic. And the label, when I looked really closely, it had put leather first, even though that was less than 5%, and then synthetics underneath. So when you glanced down, you just saw the leather symbol, and it wasn't until you really got your magnifying glass out that you realised that the boot wasn't leather boot. So I did feel quite missold. The reason for talking about this is that there's Leather UK are encouraging people to sort of report and challenge some of these things that we see. So you can contact your trading standards, you can write to your MP, you can also let Leather UK know if you spot something that's being misrepresented, and they're making quite a bit of campaigning and adverts. They are our sort of federation, our trade body, our group. If you haven't come across them, check the website out, there's lots of useful information on there. So that's kind of the defence, if you like, against the term. And definitely worth looking at, and I would suggest that as leather workers, you're obviously here because you like leather and you're happy to work with leather, so I don't need to sort of say that to you in terms of defence, but this is about our consumers and our customers and our colleagues and friends who we make things for. So I would suggest that as leather workers and crafters, we quietly defend in this way. We look for things and we don't let it slide, and we maybe challenge. But a better message and a better way to do it is to really flip all that over and just let's talk about leather. Let's talk about why leather is amazing. Let's make leather the centerpiece, the hero. In social media marketing terms, there is a term called the hero piece. So when you're doing a newsletter, an article, an Instagram post, a Facebook post, you think about what you want to make center stage, what is the star of your story, and that's called the hero piece. So that's the term that marketers will give that particular aspect of the feature. What is your hero piece? And for us as leather workers, it's going to be the leather. So I guess what I thought would be good is, this is the interactive bit coming up, so get your keyboards ready. What I want to know from you guys is why are you using leather? What is special to you about leather? What is it? Special properties that work for whatever projects you're doing? What do you like about using leather? So if you can send your comments in, I'm going to go to the comments channel and see what comes through. But yeah, I just kind of want to sort of think about what you feel is why you think you work with leather, what you like about it, and we'll go through. And I guess it's just to remind ourselves really about where we're actually at with all this, particularly because there's such a lot of misconceptions around in terms of the environmental story of leather, yet when we look at the leather alternatives, as I was mentioning, these synthetics, they're really unsustainable. If people knew that they were being sold plastic, I'm not sure they would make the same buying choices. So Richard's saying the look of the leather, so that's why you like it. It's got a very attractive look. So that's one aspect for it, is the aesthetics. And how many other materials can you think of where the look gets better with age? It actually improves the more the product is used and is develops a patina from the oils. It's quite a living thing, and there's something we connect with that in terms of appearance. Z says she loves the feel and smell of it, and it's rewarding to work with. There's quite a, Peter would talk about this in the seminar day, there's a human resonance with leather because of the part it's played in the whole evolutionary history, and the fact it's been, Richard saying, it's hard wearing, it's protective. People have used it for armour, they've used it for gauntlets, for working with birds of prey. It's protective, it's keeps the elements out. People wore leather coats, jackets. It's part of how we survived as a human race. It's suitable for the products that you wish to make, so it's a suitable material. But why? Why, Richard? Why is it suitable? What properties does it have over and above other materials? Bob said it was satisfying to work with, and I do agree. There's just nothing like hand stitching on a piece of leather and the feel of that. There is a really satisfying result. Wet moulding and shaping, how satisfying is that to see something take on a form with just using the application of water, whether you're tooling or carving or moulding. Chris is saying it's the best product for equestrian products because of how long lasting it is. Now, the length of time that your leather lasts is so significant in terms of the sustainable argument. If you buy a bridle, a belt, a bag, a pair of shoes that are really good quality leather, if you look after those, they will last. This is counter completely to our disposable society, this message of leather. This is of the sustainable material. It's a byproduct of the animal industry, the meat industry. It's a product that will last. It's not, we've got these stories, it's repairable. I don't know if anybody's mentioned that yet. But yeah, it can be repaired. The leather itself is so hard wearing and durable, whether you're using a thin leather from a jacket, whether you're using the really thick bridle leathers, you can restitch, you can re-glue. You all know how to stitch, you know how to glue, you can repair your items, you can repair things for other people. You only have to watch Susie on the repair shop and you see some of those projects that come in. How old are some of those leathers? I've just been given a shotgun case to repair for a friend, or to conserve, let's say. It's maybe coming up now for 80 to 90 years old. I'm looking at it. It's not going to take much, to be honest with you, to repair, to conserve it. Well, we can talk about conservation versus restoration another day, but it's still useful. It will still be functional when I finish, when I've repaired the handles. It will be a completely functional item that's 90 years old. I don't know how many other materials you can say that about. So Trevor's saying one of the misconceptions he finds himself saying on a basis is whether it's real leather or genuine leather as opposed to full grain. And he uses the comparison of chipboard and timber. Yeah, that's a good comparison. And that's perhaps another thing to understand about leather, is there are things called bonded leather, where lots of leather fibres are just glued all together and it's not particularly strong. You can get split leather, and the further down the skin you go, the weaker the collagen fibres are. It's called stratification, where they take layers off. So top grain is that top grain where you've got the grain intact, where the collagen fibres are at their tightest. So that's why the term top grain leather is often used. The level below is often used to make suede, because particularly on cow hides where you've got thick hides that you're stratifying, and that's how tanneries will make money. If you go further down, you get splits, and sometimes you'll get a leather microfilm of a grain put on top of that, and it's a much cheaper version, it's a cheaper leather, and it does crack sometimes because the top film on it will crack, and it's made to look like a grain. So I guess a lot of the time it's price related. If you see something that's a really cheap leather and a bargain, have a real look at it, see if it feels on the back like the fibres feel loose, see if the grain looks like it's more of a embossed film. It's quite tricky to determine sometimes, but generally you can tell by the looseness and feel of the back. And if you break the top surface and see what it looks like, if it looks particularly loose and hairy. But ask us when you're buying your leather if it's top grain. We'll be very clear about it. We will always label our stuff split if it's a split leather. Those are some really good things that have come in. So it's hard wearing, it's repairable, it's sustainable, long lasting, protective. So for example, you could use it for a blacksmith's apron. It will protect you from sparks and from heat and fire. There's a reason why car manufacturers are still using leather for seats. It's hard wearing. It's versatile. from the very thin leather that you can use for gloves up to really thick leather. Thick leather belting straps are still used in modern factories for machinery because it's a modern material. We think of leather sometimes with a historical perspective. We have such nostalgia and love for the nostalgia and smell of things that we forget it is actually a really good material for the future as well. And an example of this is the SpaceX project by Elon Musk working on at the moment. They are using and working on a leather that will give them a pair of gloves that will enable touch screen. The entire consoles will be all touch screen based, but they're going to be in zero gravity, so they need to be able to move about and grip hold of things to move themselves around. So they will be wearing these thin gloves that will feel like very natural, they'll feel like a second skin, but they will have touch screen ability. So it's innovative. It's the use of a material for the future. And another way that you can be a leather hero, make leather the hero is, this is a little example, but our nephew, Finley in Cornwall, he's studying product design and he's just about to start sixth form to do product design. And I've been talking to him a lot about what he's being taught. He has a whole section on materials, and leather isn't on that list, which is crazy. How many products can you think of that you can make? And he's used it because I've given him things in the past. I've given him boxes to play with, given him tools throughout his life, and he's been making all sorts of different things with it. And if you know any kids who are doing product design, who are doing that for school, offering them the chance to work in leather, it might give them a little bit of an edge. So for example, we have students that come in from the Nottingham-Trent University, from Sheffield Hallam, doing product design degrees. One of the guys from there made a pair of leather ski boots. He won an award. He was then offered a job straight away with Timberland. Leather is used. It's used all over. There are jobs if you've got that kind of knowledge available out there. So if you can encourage young people who are studying to work and use leather and to consider it, because they're not really being given that information at school, and then not always being given it at university either. That it's just not on people's radar. So raising the awareness of it is a really good thing, particularly with young people, helping young people to just have a go and play with leather where they're not being taught that at school, is another way we can make leather the hero in our lives. So you've put quite a lot of really positive things about what you love about leather. I'm speaking to the converted here, I'm aware, but I guess I just want you to really not fall back in love with leather, but to just, up your enthusiasm for it as a material. You might be selling, you might be making for other people. You might not think of yourself as a good salesperson. I come across this quite a lot with leather workers. They're good at making, they're great makers, but they don't feel comfortable with that idea of selling themselves or selling their products. It doesn't come naturally. And I think that's partly because there's a bit of a misconception about selling. All you really need to be is enthusiastic and passionate about what you do. And if you've got some of these context, some of this story to tell about why you love what you do, why you work with leather, it's catching, it's contagious, and that's all you need to do. So if you can convey some of that, and it will make somebody look at your item, they'll look at the handcraftedness, but they'll just look at how great it is to own something that's leather, that's proper leather, that you know about, that you're selling as full grain leather, that's long lasting. What a great message. So what I want to challenge you on really is to just go back to look at some of the things you've made recently, and think about leather as the hero. And if you want to take me up on this, you can, but I'd like to see, maybe you go and take a photo today or this week of something where in the photo you're really making the leather the hero, the centre, the star of the piece, if you like. And if you are selling, or if you're just putting some of the things you've made up on Instagram or Facebook, you can use that photo. You can hashtag full grain leather, hashtag vegetable tan leather. Ask us for some of the stories behind the leather you've used. We've talked before about the eco white leather and the wonderful story with that. a lot of these stories, the English bridal story, is on our website, on the information section, on the useful, guides and templates, I think. There's some blog posts about some of these leathers. So you can use the hashtags to kind of generate your message. Use the hashtag sustainable, and then when people ask you, you can say, well, it's long lasting. I want you all to think of yourselves as advocates. You're advocates for leather and for what a wonderful material it is that we have the privilege to work with. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to talk about this morning and to say. So I'll leave you with that challenge. Send me in some photos on the page here, or you can email them in. And just think this week about how and why you love working with leather. Think about how special it is as you're working with it, and think about taking a shot or a photo of you at work. It could be the finished item, it could be a close-up where you're making leather the star of the photo. So ask me any questions as well. We're happy to kind of talk. We're always happy to talk leather, let's face it. And Peter's got a wealth of information. I've learned so much from him, and I know a lot of you would probably say the same if you've been on his seminar days and you've been on any of the talks and at the open days. But yeah, let's kind of stand up for leather, I guess. Let's promote leather, let's make leather the hero. You are the advocates.